Well, we're going live. There's only one person so far in the chat room. Don Zulu. Hello, Don. How are you? And we'll see how things go this evening. We had a pretty good number of attendees last week. So far, we're just getting started this evening. We've got Mike Oswald from AA7, Mike Oscar. And I was going to say Missouri there, AA7MO, and good to see you guys this evening. It's 74 outside right now. It was quite a bit warmer earlier, and then the monsoon rains came in and cooled things down and dropped only 0.05 of an inch of rain. So I was, let's see, we've got Don that says doing well. Some thunderstorms rolling into the Twin Cities too. Chuck Schreiber is here. Hello, good to see you again. Good evening, and all Augies and 5 KVO from South Texas. Our 36th day this year that we have reached 100 or more in temperature. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. James KI50EB has got a /AG. And so that sounds like somebody just passed their general exam. Congratulations to you. He says, but not at work. He's got COVID. That's bad. That's sad. I have a number of friends who have gotten COVID, some of them more than once. You remember all the hope that there was with the vaccines and everything. Now it seems to be kind of fading for everybody because people are getting COVID who've had it before. And, oh well, I've got a new kind of variant. The virus is a coronavirus, which is the same kind of virus that is the common cold. And there is some talk of research going on to develop a generalized antiviral medication that attacks all coronavirus. And if so, they would have finally found the proverbial cure for the common cold. Oh my goodness, the world will beat a path to their door if they can come up with that. But in the meantime, the virus is mutating faster than they can make medications that will help it. That's too bad. So sorry to hear, James, that you've got COVID. Warren Baker says, hi, Dave, WA4BAK. And this ADHD Life, hello from Oregon, and Keith, KK7AQN. My daughter has ADHD, and she sees a doctor. She's pushing 40. She sees a doctor. Well, no, she's 37. That's not pushing 40. She sees a doctor to get Ritalin so that she can work. Otherwise, she can't settle down at her tasks at work. She works for Ball Aerospace. And so she takes that, and it really helps her. So, let's see, Warren Baker, that's ADHD, Ed K6SDW, Sacramento approaching 100 again. It's crazy. I mean, it gets really hot. It's crazy. Let's see, Jim Maloney, listening, Jim WB0OQV in Missouri. And Jeff Duffini, greetings all from Charlotte, North Carolina, 84F, formerly KB4JLD. Sounds like a new call. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, says hi, Dave, from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it is 90 degrees. Whoa. And, you know, that heat, when you get east of the Mississippi and you get any significant heat, you get significant humidity, too, and it can be just downright miserable. James says he is isolated with his COVID. Duncan Masiver, hi Dave from KK7GFB. Hello. Robert Petrie, greetings from Bob, K4WTA in Helena, Alabama. Bacon Whiskey, Speedy Recovery, James. Yes, we all wish that for James. It's no fun to be sick. I've heard that it can vary from something very light to like the worst flu you've had in your life. And it can attack the respiratory system too. I've got a friend at the Ham Radio Club. These are the people who were telling me 3 years ago that COVID was a hoax. Well, his wife got long COVID, and she's finally getting over it, but she's still on oxygen a lot. And so she's improving, which is very good news. Okay, let's see. 96 degrees Fahrenheit back porch, Greeley, Colorado. That's just the other side of the hills. We've got thunderstorms here. It's 74 right now, but 51% relative humidity because it did drop a little bit of rain. Steve Simpson says, hi Dave, Steve Simpson, KE0OG in Ohio. Enjoying the feed? Thank you. This ADHD life, that's great. Glad she's getting help and it's working. Yes. James, KI5OEB, says thanks and he loves the live stream. Good. Well, we'll try and do some good things. Again, the way we do the live stream here, what we try to do is it's just a chance for Augies to get together and chat. And sometimes with each other, sometimes just to the whole group. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. And I have occasionally taken suggestions here to make videos about, and I've even taken comments from videos to put in the Ask Dave column in QST. So I'll take them from whichever direction they come in. They all kind of go into the pot here. So let's see. Our club president contracted COVID and did not survive. Ed, I am very sorry to hear that we've got a silent key because of COVID. COVID is, if you've got some pre-existing condition, I'm fat and old and diabetic and have got pulmonary issues and so on. And so far I'm in good health. Just kind of forging on through it. I've had, of course, both shots plus 2 boosters. And if they have another booster, I'll certainly line up to get it. But I would think that, I was at Dayton, and if there was going to be a super spreader event, that would be it. But neither my wife nor I came down with anything after Dayton. Although I was looking forward to enjoying going to the Duke City Ham Fest in Albuquerque this year, but they've canceled it again. Apparently there's a COVID outbreak in the state, so they're not going to have that Ham Fest this year, and I miss it. I haven't been since 2019, and so that'll be 3 years in a row they've canceled it. Pacificon, however, out in California is still on. And my wife and I are planning on going out there because she has a friend who lives right in the same town where they're holding Pacificon. And the Reno Ham Fest seems to have evaporated. If anybody knows anything about the Reno Ham Fest, it's just a swap meet now. And it's not even held in the same place. It's held about a quarter mile away. So let's see. J. Half Moon Farm said 99 in Nebraska, K0OG. Yes, my wife's sister, who has MS, is in Nebraska, in Stratton. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that she keeps her air conditioning because MS and heat don't get along. So let's see. Michael C., KI5VRJ, is studying for his general, and very happy to hear that. And then he says, on a sad note, my father-in-law passed, and the funeral is Saturday. Very sorry to hear that. Especially sorry to hear that for your wife, whom I'm sure must be very saddened by that. My father died a couple years ago, and he had had dementia for so long. It was like I really didn't know the man that we were burying. It was a really weird feeling because we had buried my mother several years before, and she was bright and up there and with it right to the very end. And I got to tell you, I did okay. I'm the oldest boy, so I'm the oldest. And a boy, which still matters in some groups. Anyway, they looked to me to be the leader. I was fine through the funeral, and then came home, and about a week later, it hit me, and I was useless for 3 months after that because, I knew her, was close to her, and so on. But it seemed like Dad had gone so long before. I mean, we did everything that we were supposed to do. We had the funeral. I made doggone sure he had a flag on his casket and that the American Legion was there to give him a proper send-off. The 3 guns firing several volleys, and the flag, which you can see right there, that's Dad's flag. And I got it as the oldest son and the only veteran in the family. So sorry to hear that, Michael. I hope things work well for you. Take time to grieve. Joe Tyson checking in from Apex, North Carolina, only 77 there, 82% humidity, KM4WRQ. Liminal says, Dave, it's raining outside. I have a bunch of wire, a 9-to-1 Anon, and a QRP radio. Can I string up a random wire here inside my bedroom somehow? Well, what I do is make it a loop, maybe 2 or 3 loops, and connect one side to the Anon and the other side to the other side of the coax, so you really truly have a loop, and it might work out pretty good there. And W2AEW, who has, I think, the YouTube channel for ham radio with the most subscribers, you've got quite a few, and I really absolutely loved your explanation of the Smith charts, is with us from hot and humid New Jersey. Good to see you. James KI50EB, question, made an end-fed half-wave 49-to-1 toroid, or balun. What should I start with as an antenna length? The rest of the 100 feet will be used as the counterpoise. Well, you can do it 2 ways. You can do it for 80, you can do it for 40. If you're going to do it for 40, you want it 66 feet long. If it's going to be for 80, 132 feet long. Why don't you just do 40, make it 66 feet long. Try it without counterpoise first, and then see what you need to do with the counterpoise to get that thing to tune right. If you take your coax down to your ground rod and ground the outer sheath at the ground rod, preferably with a lightning arrestor, it's an easy way to do it, and then bring it into your shack, that piece of coax, the outer shield, between the balun and your ground rod can act as the counterpoise. And that's the way I did it with when I tested my antennas end-fed halfway for 80 through 10. I had 50 feet of coax from the balun to the ground rod here, and it worked beautifully. I was very excited with it. So that's what I would start with. Just start with no counterpoise and then try adding 5, 10, 15, 20 feet, something like that. J Half Moon Farm says, Adam, KE0OG, Nebraska, 99 there. Well, yeah, it's kind of warm. Michael Coulter, beautiful here just south of Xenia, Ohio. 70s there. I'll bet you had some rain today. Thanks for all your interesting videos. Very best wishes to all from Whiskey 8, Charlie, India. John Hummel Newell, Victor Echo 5, Juliet Hotel, November, says, hello, Dave and all the Yogis. Warren Baker, Dave, I'm disabled and my local radio club is going to do an antenna raising for me to get on the air. Antenna is a fan dipole. Does it matter if the two sides go in a straight line? No, it does not. You could make it an inverted V, even if you wanted to, or if you had some center pole to hold up one side and then you take the other off over at an angle, because that's the only way you can do it. That works fine too. In fact, in a recent Ask Dave column, somebody asked that very same question. It was in the June 2022 issue, and I've got a picture here of the top looking down on a house of the half-wave antenna that's bent, okay, bent at the center, and I modeled it, and it did quite well with the modeling. You get a little bit of a preference for like an arrow pointing that way, but otherwise it will work just fine. So I think you can do okay on that. Okay, let's see. 9 Mike 6 Whiskey Sierra Tango, good morning from Malaysia. Learned a lot from your videos. I think it must be in the morning over there, quite early in the morning. Thank you for checking in from Malaysia. Good to hear from you. James Webb, your telescope is doing very well, by the way, James. Southwest Pennsylvania here, KC3 EQP. Duncan Masiver says, Dave, I bought a DX Commander antenna, would like to install on my flat foam roof using concrete blocks for tying the antenna. Yes, I'm wondering if you have any idea how to lay out a ground plane. I'd go with insulated radials, put about 20 or 30 of them out there. The length doesn't really matter. 10 feet, 15 feet, whatever you can fit on the roof, and just lay them down. And if the wind blows them around, just gently lay a brick or half a brick on the end of it and to keep it there. And that should work out pretty well for you. The DX Commander is a good antenna. Not necessarily the most intuitive thing to put together, but many people have succeeded in doing that. I've got mine, it's out laying on the back porch. We're going to do a build audit of that and then do our final video on the DX Commander. It's a fine antenna. It's less expensive than a lot of other verticals and works just as well as they do. Cycle Camp says, hi Dave, quick question. If 15 is the third harmonic of 40 and you can use 15 on a 40-meter dipole, sort of, would this also apply to a dipole made of ham sticks? The answer is yes, it would. But the problem with the ham sticks is that they're pretty high Q. So getting them to radiate on the third harmonic might be hard. Now, I know when I was a novice, you know, I thought nothing of course, my antenna was a 14 AVQ. It would work on 15 as well as it would on 40. But a dipole, you really need a tuner because it's just not quite all there. But it may very well apply to a dipole made of ham sticks, but I would check it out if I were you, because you may find out that they're too high Q. And you've got a coil inside there after all. And that coil has a certain reactance. And so when you go to the third harmonic, the reactance may be all wacko. Whereas a dipole doesn't have that built-in reactance. Okay, Glenn Martin says, thank you, 91 degrees here in far west Missouri, N0QFT. Cycle Camp 1 says, apply. James KI5OEB, I was overseas when my father passed. It still gets to me. Yes, you know, they say time heals all wounds. That was written by some young person who had no idea. The plain fact of the matter is that some hurts never quite go away. And we just have to forge ahead, 1 foot at a time. You know, as we age, all through our adulthood, we accumulate scars. emotional scars, real scars, things like that. And that becomes part of who we are, what we've passed through. We are a product of our decisions, but we are also a product of our experiences. And I know that as I get older, I am more and more and more patient with people because I've been through some pretty rough things in my life. And others, when they're going through rough things like that, I'm not thinking, what an idiot, but I'm thinking, I've been there, done that, and I know what these things feel like. So, yeah, just recognize to give yourself some time to heal and move on when you're ready. And don't let anybody tell you that it takes a year to get over it or something like that. It might take you 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. Just be yourself, take your time. If you find that being with people is helpful, then do that. If you find that getting on the air is helpful, which is nice because you can talk to people, but it's at an arm's length, that's a good thing to do too. And sometimes you just need alone time. Okay, let's see. Dave, do you know a good book on doing DX? Oh, absolutely. Let me see if I still have it. This is getting old now. This is The Complete DXer by Bob Locher, W9KNI. Now let me see if I can figure out when this thing, copyright 1983. Okay. There may be other books that have been written since, but I've got to tell you this made a major difference for me. 1983, so that makes this thing 40 years old. The thing is, nothing has changed. The ionosphere is still the ionosphere. Antennas are still antennas. The world is still very much as it was for ham radio operators. So if you can get a hold of this book, there may be an update or something like that. It's got some fun cartoons in it and so on. And I guess this napkin, this is the size of napkin they hand out. Oh, well, look at that. United Airlines. Okay. Obviously, I was reading this on an airplane. I used to travel an awful lot for business. Okay, so there you go. That's a good book. And W2AEW says thank you. Liminal says a quick follow-up, so it's okay to hook one end of an unknown to the other. I won't destroy the universe in my radio. An unknown is basically a balun that just happens to be unbalanced, but what you can do if you, and I don't have my overhead camera, for some reason it and OBS just don't get along. But if you, I'm going to draw here is the 2 terminals of the unknown. And you can do a big loop like this, between the 2 terminals right here. Okay, and by big loop, I mean cover the whole room, maybe 2 or 3 times, okay? And you'll have to play games with it to see what you can do with it. But that will work. That will work. I'm not going to say it's ideal or anything like that, but it will work. Okay, so Richard Chandler, KC6ART, just a 73 for who you are and what you do. Thank you. Thank you very much. You mean a lot to many. Thanks, Dave. I would like to encourage you and all of you who enjoy these videos, 1, to please share them. 2, please help spread the word that I need more subscribers in order for YouTube to continue to think this is a really good channel to share. I only had 773 new subscribers last month, and that's about 1/3 of what it was a year ago. So, I just hate to get to the point where we start seeing the channel go down. So if you are not subscribed, please do go ahead and subscribe. If you don't want the notifications, don't click the bell. But if you click the bell, it will tell you whenever there's a new video. I am pretty prolific in putting out videos. There's several a week, about 5 videos a week plus a live stream. And so, and occasionally I throw a sky video in there too. I was going to do that the other day. I went flying yesterday, and I was one button push away from having recorded the audio, the air traffic audio, and my commentary. One button push away. So I'm going to try again tomorrow. Just kick myself. Because, you know, you're so focused on the airplane and the checklist. I need to make myself a checklist for the recorder. This little recorder, this is the Tascam DR05, which is a very much used recorder. It's professional. It's 16-bit audio. And will record literally for hours on one thing. And there's a spot up here where you can plug a microphone in. That's the mic in or an external, or let's see, mic in and external in. Okay. So I have a microphone that I used to use for videos, and I've got it tucked up inside my headset and kind of tied there, and then it goes just via a cord to this. Unfortunately, when you turn this on, you got to hold it down and it comes on. Okay, and then it's got its recording screen, and then when you push the button, this is designed so that you can check levels. As you see, the number, the lines kind of move with my voice here. But it's not yet recording, it's in standby. You have to push this button one more time, and then it's recording. Now, obviously, it's designed for professional recording, where you're going to use the levels to do the sound check to make sure everything is working right. And doggone it, I cannot tell you how many videos I've recorded that I've had to record over again because of that one little feature of this recorder. So anyway, we'll get there. Okay, let's see. Hello from Ohio, from Brad H74. I happened to cross your channel trying to learn more about SWR and any of the other things that take away from getting the most out of a radio. Says, thanks for sharing. Well, thank you. And Anli is back with us. Hello there. KK7EMW, and he says, hi, Dave, and everyone. James KI50EB, thanks for the advice on the in-fed half-wave. Hope that works well for you. You can tweak it around. By the way, the ARRL offers a kit. Now, I realize that the ARRL is lots of publications, including QST, and they do a lot of good field work, and they work with the FCC and all that sort of thing. And they don't carry very much hardware, but one of the things they do carry is an end-fed half-wave antenna for 40, 20, 15, 10. And it is a kit that's less than $100. And the problem is it involves some drilling, which has kept me from making it so far. I've got all the drills, I just need to do it. But it does involve a little bit of drilling in the plastic case. I guess you could do it with a file and a simple drill bit, but the hole for the SO239 is a little bit bigger than most holes that normal drill kits will build. But you can get that for less than $100. Okay, so let's see. Paul Susheraba has put $10 into the channel funds, and I make my shameless plea here for additions to the channel funds. They really help get through a number of things that have been happening here. Thanks for all you do, Dave. Hello from Xenia, Ohio, K9SUS. I rely on your videos and advice as I have been building my station over the last year, as well as using your videos while pursuing my extra. Well, congratulations and good luck with your studies for your extra, Paul. I hope you get the station up. Don't forget dcasler.com/reference, where if you are curious about what to buy for a particular thing like coax, I give a direct recommendation in there. It's just a reference. You don't have to get that one thing, but it's someplace to start. Okay, so thank you for the chat revenue. John K6RXD says, good evening, Dave and friends. Dave L says, I know you said last week to wait to take the extra test so that I could appreciate it more, but I couldn't do that. It sounds like somebody has just got their extra AJ6XL, and congratulations to you. And now let's get you on the air, okay, on HF, and take a look again at that reference setup there. Brad, age 74, I need a charter guide for the 10 codes, which are not used in ham radio. 73 is part of the old Phillips code, which was a set of around 200 or so abbreviations. 73 is the Phillips code for best wishes. If you know the person on the other end, you can use 88, which means love and kisses. But unfortunately, that particular number has been co-opted by some political people in the U.S., so I don't use that with my wife anymore. I just put a little love emoji. So 10 codes, if you want a charter guide for the 10 codes, which are used on CB and sometimes used on some public service frequencies, you can just look on the internet for them and you'll find them. The old Phillips code, see, the idea was that people paid by the word. So if they put best wishes in something, the telegrapher would only send 73 and then charge for the 2 words. And there are a huge list of very common phrases that were used in telegrams at the time. We're talking something over 100 years old, and it just started with the landline telegraph. But 73 is the one that's really been picked up. You know, this is the old code for like 30. People put 30 at the end of an article. That 30 is a signal to the typesetter that that's the end of the article. You know, it means end. And you see all these kinds of things in here. You could send a whole telegram with a couple of names or something like that, but otherwise just numbers, and you could get the traffic moved through very quickly. Okay, oops, let's see. Manuel Fernandez, good morning, Augies. What will I need to use a radio at the same time with just an X520M? Thanks from the Philippines. I was in the Philippines 50 years ago when I was a Mormon missionary. I imagine things have changed. I remember at the time there were 34 million people in the Philippines. It's at least double that now. To use a radio at the same time. If you're using a 2-meter radio at the same time you're using an HF rig, you're usually okay. Okay. And you don't have a problem with that. You might try, Manuel, if you could rephrase that a little bit, I might be able to help you a little bit more. Jeff Harris says, hi, B8NOU, Jeff in Elkins, West Virginia. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Braden Lewandowski, sorry, did not mean to post my comment without time, so no problem. N7ECVQRP Live said, very well said. Thank you. James KE0OG says, hit the like. Your videos are invaluable. Thank you. And if any of you have any ideas or questions that you think I ought to address, let me know. The easiest way to send them is to ask Dave, all one word, askdave@arrl.org, O-R-G. And that is the official address for the column in QST, and all those questions come directly to me. Another way to be sure I see your question is to actually mail it to me at P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado 81432, and that'll get to me, and I do get them. Now, one of the things you should send to me at that address is your entry for the giveaway for July, which is this right here. It's a very, very nice multimeter by KE0OG. And I just made a video today using that where I was comparing multimeters. Someone asked the question, you know, I got a new multimeter and it reads different from the old one. And his implied question is that okay? Is that normal? Actually, it's quite normal. And I took all the multimeters I could lay my hands on, and I laid them out on the table here, and then fed them with my bench power supply at 13.8 volts, just to show how wildly different the readings can be. They were not hugely different from each other, but they were several tenths of a volt different from each other. And in the case of the little analog meter I had, it was a tenth of a volt, maybe almost a full volt, different from what the others were. And I introduced the idea of estimation. The actual voltage that a power supply puts out, for example, is unknown. We cannot know it except to within some acceptable accuracy, like a tenth of a volt. And so I introduced the topic of estimating. You've got something, you estimate what that is, and depending on if you want to improve your estimate, you can use multiple voltmeters and average them and so on and so forth. But in ham radio, 13.8 volts, the radios will take 13.8 plus or minus 10% or plus or minus 15%. So 15% is more than a volt. That's a volt and a half, more than a volt and a half at that range. Anyway, the video will be coming out soon, so you can take a look at it. Okay, hi Dave from Bel Air, Maryland, W3IG. That's Jason DiCarlo. Paul CVK4DPC is in Australia. Oops. I'm sorry, it jumped ahead on me here. Paul says, thank you for the videos. Bacon Whiskey says, thumbs up. James KI50AB says, you were flying video matters not. Yeah, some people don't like the flying videos. I start all of them, the name is Sky. So if a video has the name Sky in it, you can skip it if you don't like the flying videos. Smoberdine says, good evening from Ohio. We have an operator from our group in Maine this week, and we contacted him via 20 and 40. Just wondering if other stations try contacting specific people via HF. Absolutely, they do. This is K8STU. When you set up a schedule to talk to somebody on the air on a specific frequency or a list of frequencies that you'll try, you're setting up a schedule, and the ham radio jargon for that is a SKED. S-K-E-D, SKED. And I've set up SCADs a number of times, when I want to talk to somebody at some particular time and place and so on. So yes, it is not as common as it used to be. People often do nets, but if you meet somebody at a specific time, you've got a SCAD. You've got a schedule there. Good morning from the Japan Islands, limited to 100 watts output. This is Marvin Motz. Yes, different countries have different limits. This is why all the Japanese radios come out with 100 watts. You notice that this last field day limited field day stations to 100 watts. James KE0OG loved this week's videos more than normal. And W2AEW did a video on building that NFED half-wave kit. I may have seen that. And that may have been what prompted me to order the thing. So I'll have to go back and double check that video. And that's great. Let's see, James KE0OG, ARRL member. I will make one of those too. Richard K6RDJ, the Truckingham. Good evening, Sir Dave. James KI5OEB, never have too many antennas. Yeah, I've got so many I can't connect them all at the same time. 9M6WST says, during the pandemic lockdown since 2020, homebrewed a couple of antennas, built an antenna similar to the DX Commander and one similar to the Wolf River Coil, 49-to-1 linked NFED and a 9-to-1 random wire. Sounds like you have been busy, and congratulations on all your homebrewing. That's really cool. N7ECV QRP Life, I'll be an extra class operator soon because of you. Proud Augie in Washington State. Very good. Congratulations and good luck with your testing. Bob Darlington says, hello, Alan and Dave. James KI5OEB, can an NFED half-wave be made into a vertical, sloper, or horizontal? Yes, to all of them. In fact, my antennas NFED half-wave actually recommend an inverted V configuration, but that's for theirs. Golf Zero, Fox Victor Tango. Good evening, all. After 2 a.m. here in the UK. And Bob Darlington adds $10 to the chat revenue. Thank you very much. That does make a difference. I appreciate it. If you're interested in how you do that, I'll show you. It's like super easy. Screen. Go down right here where you say something. Right in there, and there's a emoji, and there is a $sign, and then there's some statistics where I can create a poll. But you can just click on that, and it allows you to add something to the chat revenue if you want. If you want to do that, I would love you to do that, but not everybody can, and so I want you to understand that if you can't, it's okay. Okay. Let's see. Made my first CW KE0OG this week. Wow. A little nerve-wracking, but the guy was real nice, answered my CQ at my speed. Took me several tries to get all of his info, but I survived. Well, congratulations on that. I can well remember my original CW KE0OG. I was scared to death. Now I will tell you the fastest way to get your code speed up and your confidence up is to do all your further code work on the air, because that will really help you. Now that you've gotten past that first one, oh, what a difference that makes. YL, 3's Delta Whiskey 3, Tango Romeo Zulu. Mabuhay from the Philippines. Mabuhay is a general greeting, almost a blessing. The Filipinos call it the Mabuhay spirit, and it's got very strong connotations of neighborliness, of helping each other out, bearing one another's burdens. It's just one of the wonderful things about the Philippines that I got to enjoy when I was there. It says, hope everyone is doing well and have a great time. And Sir Isaac Newton said, hi from Brazil. I watch your videos frequently and always learn something new. Thanks for sharing. And W2AEW says, congrats on Lee. Very good. And thank you. I'm a subscriber of yours too. So very good. There are a number of ham radio YouTube channels that aim at different demographics. Some aim for the newcomer. Some aim just to entertain rather than teach. Others kind of combine a little bit. I mean, everybody has their unique way of doing things. Some try to be outrageous, some outlandish. I know W2AEW tends to go for the techie, and I'm talking in the amateur extra techie. I tend to, the person in my mind when I'm making a video is a fairly new general. So somebody who's trying to learn about HF and so on. And yet I get a lot of questions that can be answered at the extra level. I do get technician type questions, and of course I'm updating the technician videos. There are only 3 videos that need to be updated to include a little something extra that is in the new book that's not in the old. And those will be updated in due time. In the meantime, the tech videos, as they exist on the ARRL YouTube site, which you can find an index of by going to dcasler.com, KE0OG.net/training. And we'll give you a list of the videos, and when you click on that, that takes you into the ARRL YouTube channel so that you can watch those. Those are outside the paywall. The general and extra videos are inside the paywall for the ARRL. But it only costs $49 to join the ARRL for a year. That gives you access to all that information. And if you think about it, you know, I used to sell these little thumb drives like this, amateur extra. It has all the videos on it. And the reason that I did this is people said, look, I can't get to the internet when I have time to study. So I put all the videos on these, and I charge $49.99 for them, postpaid, anywhere in the US. So it's actually 4 cents cheaper to join the league, and you can get all of those videos. I still have to work with them on coming up for a good substitute for this, because there are still people who can't get to the internet when they want to watch that. Let's see. Bob Darlington needs an HB3456A and Kelvin clips. Yeah. Dave just became a new general. Your videos are very helpful. Well, this is Bassman Jr. 100. Congratulations on becoming a new general. Please go to dcasler.com/reference. And at that point, I list all the parts and pieces of a reference general class station. And it will give you a place to start. It's called a reference design, meaning something you can look at for reference. If you exactly duplicate the design, you'll have a station that works very well that you'll be very happy with. If you decide you want to substitute a different transceiver or whatever, fine, but it gives you a starting place. Probably the first thing you will change is your antenna. You'll go for a fancier antenna. The reference station antenna is well under $100. It's from MFJ. It puts you on 40 and 20 and 10 and 6, but 40 and 20, which is where a lot of the action is for the general ham bands. So good luck. Let's see. W2AEW says he's on his journey to increase his CW proficiency. Been at it a while, so now somewhere between 15 and 20. My experience is a little old, but my experience is that When you get to 15 to 18, somewhere in there, that's where you're going to find most code kind of settles in at. There are a few people who like to go 30 words per minute. Good for them. All three of those people who are still out there, great, have at it. But most people kind of loaf along between 15 and 20 word per minute and have wonderful conversations. Now, you've got to remember, it says people talk at about 100 to 120 words a minute. So how can you enjoy a conversation of 15 to 20 words per minute? Well, a word in CW is a standard 5-character plus space, and the word that is used as the standard is Paris, P-A-R-I-S, and then the space after it. That's a standard word. By the way, the military uses a different word, which is slightly longer, and so their speeds, when they say 5 words a minute, it's actually a little bit faster than that. But the thing is that CW users use Q signals, they use abbreviations, they use prosigns and stuff like that. Instead of saying, well, I just turned 70 last week, they'll put age here 70. Okay, very brief. And so you can do a lot of really good things. By the way, back in ancient times, before the telegraph, when people wrote business letters, they were florid and long and wordy, and they'd say, my dear sir, it is my privilege to send you this invoice. I hope you found our services satisfactory, da-da-da-da-da. But when the telegraph came along and you had to pay by the word, all that changed. And people created what was called a telegraphic style. And instead of that big long thing for the invoice, it would say, pay invoice 25 for $4,000 next post. That would be it. And they would even drop the word please because that was an extra word. So you learn to develop a telegraphic style when you're using CW. I mean, literally a telegraphic style. You can say quite a bit to the point where you're having a conversation with somebody else at 15 to 20 words per minute according to the definition of words. But actually, it's like talking to somebody else. And the more you do CW, you start to recognize that dot, dit is the, and just write down the. Now, some people say you got to copy in your head. I say no. Go ahead and copy on a piece of paper. Use lowercase cursive. Now, if you're real young and you don't know how to write cursive anymore, all I can say is my heart goes out to you. But if you write in cursive, you can keep up really well. Lowercase cursive. If you try to print in capital block letters, you'll fall badly far behind. Lowercase cursive works really well. So there you go, just some thoughts on CW. Okay, Daryl Young in Virginia, KN4YEM is radio communications. Life and Death says they use a 10.000 volt reference supply if my meters are accurate around 12 volts. Yeah, my bench power supply is, I would say, accurate to within a couple tenths of a volt. It's good enough for everything I do. I know it is dangerous to suggest this in this company, but a reasonable check for a voltmeter is to use a 7805 or similar. They're generally very close to rated output. Their 7805s are an integrated circuit that is a voltage regulator that'll take 12 volts down to 5. And a lot more stuff these days in ham radio is showing up at 5 volts because that's the main voltage inside a computer cabinet for a lot of the external chips. The actual processor itself takes multiple voltages, some as low as like 2.3 volts in there, because when they lower the voltage, they lower the heat. And so that's why they do that. Yeah, the 7805, you can get 2 or 3 of them and check them, and they'll probably be within 1/10 of a volt of each other. They're very good. They do check them. They do test them before they come out, most of them, and so they get very close to the rated output. Now be careful, because some of the Chinese sources for these things, what you're going to get in your pile of 7805s, is all the ones that were rejected from the good line. Okay, and they'll tell you that these are wonderful and all that sort of thing. You got to be careful what you get on the internet. Richard Bedell says, hello, KD4SGE from Atlanta, Georgia. Stephen, good evening, everyone, WW5V. Ralph Leland, hi, Dave and everyone, K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia. Paul C, VK4DPC from Australia, says, Dave, please keep doing the flying vids. I'm sure I'm not the only subscriber who really enjoys your sharing your aviation progress and adventures. Thanks. They usually get around 1,000 views. So, yes, there are a lot of people who are looking at them. Let's see. Joe McConaughey says N7NCV. He's from Washington, too. Where are you? Town is that? And says, hello, Dave. Only my family is very grateful to the Philippines, very gracious people who sheltered refugees after the fall of Saigon. Okay. When Saigon fell, a number of those refugees made their way to the United States, hundreds of thousands of them. And our church congregation decided to sponsor a family. And they had older kids, and the father didn't speak very much English, and it was a struggle. And it turns out that I was the primary interface with them at the ripe old age of 19. And I spent a lot of time teaching one of them how to drive, and helping the family navigate some of the things going on in the United States, and understanding a little bit more about Americans and what they were getting themselves into. There were a bunch of Laotian fishermen who were refugees from the war, kicked out by the communists, or fled from communism. And they were taken to Louisiana and put in the bayou and allowed to be fishermen. And they adapted instantly. I tell you, they adapted instantly, and they're still there. You can find those Laotian communities, and they're fishermen. That's what they've been for generations, and they just transferred those skills directly into the work in the United States. And I want to say this about, having worked with an immigrant family and so on, and refugees and stuff like that. These people bring some really significant skills to the United States. And so, the more we can do to help them be productive, they're paying taxes, they're contributing, they're using their skills to help, whether it be as a fisherman or, as a store clerk or whatever. And I will tell you, in the Philippines, it was almost embarrassing. Everybody knew who we were. We were missionaries. We were telling people to stop being Catholic and start being Mormon. And yet people were extremely gracious. And they would often invite us to come in, to the point where I would ask them, we're Mormon missionaries, would you like to hear about that? And they would say, no, but come in. And that's the kind of graciousness that we experienced in the Philippines all the time. I had a grand total of one person slam the garden gate against me. And unfortunately, his gate was so rickety that his motion of slamming it made very little noise, but he didn't want us around. Fine, okay, that's one person in a country of 37 million who did that. Everyone else was gracious, even if they really didn't want to hear about it. And so we tried hard to be able to tell that we didn't want to waste the time of the people who were not interested, but we wanted to be gracious too. So, and of course, if they bring you in, they try to feed you something and so on. It's just really wonderful. Okay, Bacon Whiskey says, hit the like button, please do. We've got 83 likes so far and $20 in the chat revenue. Slidebone K4NCO says, hello to all. Life and Death said 5 characters plus 1 space is called a Western Union word. Because that's how they build it. But magazines that paid by the word often paid by an actual word count. Yes. If you go back to the golden age of magazines before electronic media, so this would be the late 1800s, early 1900s, probably through the Depression. You would be paid by the word, so people tended to write longer sentences, of course, rather than that telegraphic style. When I write for QST, see if I can find my article for this month. That's what I've got, 2 pages. Right there, 2 pages. No more, no less. So what I usually do is give them more stories than they can print, and they pick the ones they want to print, and they are experts at compressing my writing to get the essence out of it. So let's see, Warren Baker, I'm hoping to start learning CW starting in September. Any pointers to get me started? Do you have any videos for it? I started to do an online live stream course for CW, but the number of viewers every week just dropped and dropped and dropped. And when it got down to about 40, I quit. I've got a recent video on a piece of software called G4FON, I think it is. G4FON. If you look up G4FON on Google, it'll take you to the piece of software. It's a British ham who has since become a silent key. At least that's what the webpage says. That piece of software is the best piece of software I've ever seen for teaching the Morse code. It's very good. It's very lifelike. And you would find it very useful. Also, as I said in the recent video, go look back through my recent videos. Go to youtube.com/Dave Casler, all one word, DAVECASLER. It brings up my homepage, YouTube homepage. And then there's a little menu kind of halfway down, and click on the one that says videos, and that will show you the videos in reverse order to when they were put up. And you'll find a fairly recent one that will give you some additional information like websites and so on. Any thoughts on typing? Well, you can certainly do that. If you've got a piece of software like FLDigi, it has a CW mode. It's absolutely terrible at interpreting the CW, but it does allow you to do a CW keyboard. Now, I've got a radio up here, the Tentec Jupiter, that came out with an update to it where you can plug an old PS2 style keyboard, like the one I'm using here, into the back of it and use it to send CW from the keyboard. It's quite interesting. Okay. Any thoughts on typing? Yes. James, KI5OEB is fading. We'll listen, but going to bundle up for sleep. Good night. N7 ECV QRP Life. Joe, the east side where guns are still legal. Whatever that means. They're legal here in Colorado, and we're not in the east. Life and Death. And standard typewriter margins were set at 12 and 72, so there would be 10 words on a line, 25 lines per page for easy counting. Yeah, there were all sorts of techniques used. Joe McConaughey, AG7XH, says, I think we've chatted on the air before. Very well could be. When I get on the air, sometimes I'll go 6 or 7 QSOs before somebody recognizes me. And then I think somebody must spot me because all the QSOs after that are Augies, which is fine. Great. I love talking to Augies. 3.875. Okay. Why does your live stream say 11 July 2022? It's because I mistyped it. That's why. I apologize for that. I'll try and do better. Okay, Optical Man Jeff adds $15 to chat revenue. Says, thanks, Dave, for everything. I ordered the book that you suggested used for $15 in great shape, second edition. So that would be this book right here, which is 40 years old, but is still a great book. This is the, let's see if there's a, there really isn't a proper Library of Congress page in here. I think this must have been self-published. No, published by Idiom Press. Yeah, that sounds like a self-publisher. By the way, if you want to self-publish these days, do it on Amazon, because you can do it for free. And you don't have to go through the bother of having books printed and so on. And what they do is they will, if somebody buys a book, they print one. It just comes out of the machine completely done, and in the mail, off it goes. So, Luis Lucasi, 73, is from PY1DX. Life Under Gas is there. What's poppin'? Brad H74. What's the deal with the computer app and ham radio? Does that pinpoint the user, or do you enter your location in the app? Computer app. There are many computer apps for ham radio. Now, most smartphones contain GPS. So if I look at my smartphone here, I've got somewhere a grid locator, if I can find it here, that will tell me what my grid square is because it's got a GPS in it. Now you got to be a little bit careful, well, you got to be a lot careful about apps, because some of these apps, here it is, it's called Grid Locator right up here, and when I press that button, it tells me what my grid locator is, and current grid locator, show grid locator, there it is right there. I mean, that gets it down to about the inch. DM68CG is what I send, and that gets down to an area of a couple square miles. But even tells me what road I'm on. Okay, whatever. Now, one of the problems, again, with these things is that sometimes they will send your location to somebody. Information about your location is valuable when it's collected with a whole bunch of other people. You know, they like to keep track of what store I'm in and where, so they can target the ads. And if you don't like that, you want to preserve your privacy. Be careful what permissions you give to these apps. If you go into settings, okay, here's settings, and you go down toward the bottom, you see a list of all the apps that you have on your phone. And so what you can do is go into each app. Let's see, Before You Fly, that's an FAA app. And these are the things, location. Well, it needs location, but I tell it the only time I give that app my location is when I'm using the app. Otherwise, it doesn't get it. Okay, so these kinds of things can help preserve your privacy. By the way, the Before You Fly app is for drone owners to check and see if it's legit to fly where they are. Okay, so like I said, I think all smartphones have GPS in them, so they know where you are. And one of the reasons that's necessary is they got to know which cell tower to match you with and so on. And, you know, be careful what you put on here. Every so often, that's the wrong one. Oh, well. This is not a not a smartphone call, but you can go through and eliminate the ones that from being in the background that you don't want there. Okay, will Orion also do keyboard CW trick? I don't know. That was something for the Jupiter. Sorry, keyboard instead of cursive copying. There were actually typewriters made for that specific purpose. They were typewriters that had caps only. And if you did the shift, you could get the various pro signs, like SK, R, AR, things like that. And they were called mills. And if you're copying on a mill, that means you're copying on a typewriter. And the typewriter itself is called a mill. They're very rare. They are collector's items at this point, but they were used extensively during World War II because if you have the operator type the copy, and let's suppose the copy is 25 words a minute. That was a common speed in the service, about 25 words a minute. Well, shoot, I can type close to 60. So people could type fairly fast and stay up with it. And then the copy sheet was instantly legible to everyone who used it. So copying on a computer keyboard can certainly be done. You can do it in a word processor, or if you use something else, you might be able to throw a switch and then send what you're typing. That can be done too. So there's lots of opportunities to do things like that. For CW and RTTY, I like the MORTTY dongle. For CW receive, CW get, it's great as long as it's a computer sending or a human with an iambic keyer. Yes, absolutely. Now, if you send using the so-called Farnsworth method, where you make each character short but put longer spaces in between them, that confuses a lot of the automatic copy. As I said, and I'm not sure if I did that in a video or just brought it out. I did it in a video. My master's thesis was on machine copying of Morse code. And it's a very difficult problem for a number of reasons. I think artificial intelligence might help in understanding what humans are trying to do when they send code. So something to look at. Do you ever use an absorption wave meter nowadays? I think it really is a P instead of a B, absorption wave meter. That is an old device that was used to measure wavelength for VHF signals. And it's very effective, and it's how they were first done. And they're big. You really need to know what you're doing to use them, and so on. I have not seen one in use. I've seen them in old movies. Nowadays, people use just a frequency counter or an oscilloscope. Let's see, keyboard instead of cursive wouldn't help me. I type 160 words a minute. Well, that's pretty fast. You must use the Dvorak keyboard, because that really helps you get your speed up. By the way, there is an option in Windows to convert your keyboard to Dvorak. A friend of mine, Randy Cassingham, wrote a book on the Dvorak keyboard, the history and use and how to learn it and so on. And he had a friend at Microsoft, and so Microsoft came to him as a consultant when they were looking at implementing the Dvorak keyboard. The Dvorak keyboard was designed based on time and motion studies of fingers. They put the most used letters on the home row. The home row is the one that the fingers go on, you know, when you're doing touch typing. So you didn't have to move your fingers away from the home row very often. Now there is a myth that the QWERTY keyboard was designed by typewriter manufacturers so that people would tend to go from one side of the keyboard to the other so that the keys wouldn't jam so often on the typewriters. I believe that's a myth. However, there were all kinds of ways of laying out keyboards for typewriters. And the QWERTY just happened to be the one that sold the most over a period of time. And so QWERTY it became. There's some rumors, again, that I'm not sure true, that the layout of the QWERTY keyboard is about the same as the layout for type. If you're setting lead type for something, and I don't know if that's true or not, but there were a number of layouts. Now the problem is that when the Dvorak came along around World War II, it is demonstrably faster than QWERTY. Demonstrably faster. But the thing is that the QWERTY was always there. It was like VHS and Beta. Beta was a technically superior system, but by then VHS had taken over the entire market, so Beta never really got anywhere. And it was the same with non-QWERTY keyboards. Everybody was used to QWERTY. QWERTY being the, if you ever wonder where that came from, it's the, let's see if I can get it there, down on this row here is KE0OG is the order of the keys. And so it was called a QWERTY keyboard. And that's how I learned to type. So yeah, anyway, there is the Dvorak keyboard out there if you want to learn it. Some people really love it. I know my friend does. Let's see. Hello from Albany, Oregon, KK7CLY. Late to the party. Good to have you, Leo. Thank you for the channel, he says, and best wishes. DJ Jackson says hello all. Robert Petrie adds $5 to the chat revenue, bringing us up to $40 for the evening. Lots of great information presented this evening. Thanks, and 73. You're certainly welcome. Thank you very much. Now, Bob Darlington has had some experience with a Linotype keyboard. Now, it looks like Linotype, but I know it's Linotype because the idea of the thing is it creates an entire line of type. And with you bump, 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 banging on the keyboard, and the font letters come down from above and form into a line, and you can put spaces in there to make it take the whole line. Linotype operators could do this extremely quickly. You punch a button, that goes off, and to form that, and you start on the next line. And every single story in a newspaper had to be set on a Linotype machine. And oh, the howls when the digital stuff came out, and people could set type using computers. Linotype machines, it actually is the name of the company, Linotype. And There's still a few of them around that operate, but they're mostly for demonstration. So, yeah, ETAOIN SHRDLU. And the keyboard had many more than the usual 100 or so characters on a typewriter, because you had lowercase, uppercase, you had italics, you had bold, so on, all your numbers, everything like that. And everything was set, and the whole newspaper had to be in the same font. Now, a font is a type foundry, meaning that you'd buy a font. It would consist of a gazillion pieces of lead that were the actual cutouts with the letters on them. And a person who set type would set it upside down or backwards and put it in the box and everything until they had the page laid out. And oh, the whole history of printing is just absolutely fascinating. My dad was really into it when he was a teenager. Now, he never had to work as a printer, but he wanted as a teenager to pick up a skill that he could have in case things did not go well. As it turned out, he got swept up in World War II. So when he got out of that, he was a veteran, and he worked for a while at Sears, and then he used the GI Bill to go back to school, get a teaching credential, and spent the rest of his life teaching, and then moving into special education and at the district level, and helped lay the foundations for special education as we know it today. He did it for the Los Angeles Unified School District. He was working under somebody named Polly Coffin, who really should get all the credit. Dad was very close working with her, and Dad spent a lot of time in Sacramento getting this to work for California, and then he went and testified before Congress when they made this thing nationwide. So he was a pioneer in special education. Anyway, he was the guy who wanted to be the printer, and I think he kind of piqued my interest in printing. Okay, we've let's see, 73 is my bedtime. It's getting very close to quitting time here. I use a mechanical keyboard, trivially easy to implement Dvorak. This keyboard right here is a real treasure. This is the Type M keyboard from IBM. As it turned out, my new computer that I built from scratch had an input for this keyboard, and I use it because it emulates the Selectric typewriter. It has the same touch and feel as the Selectric typewriter, and I can type on it. Whereas if I try to use a laptop keyboard, my fingers shake and jitter so much I can't do it. But anyway, IBM Model M best mechanical keyboard, absolutely. Keychron K6, love it. Brass matrices. The linotype would cast lead-based type metal in them, and out pops one linotype, a linotype, in lead, ready to be inked or put into another process to make pages. What they would do with their cylindrical presses is that they would take the type, do a paper mache layout on it, pull that off, and then cast it with new lead or whatever in the cylindrical shape. And then those would be bolted on to the actual presses. And you had to be very careful. Lead is a soft material. And the thing that's supposed to happen is the paper is, if you ink the lead, you're supposed to just kiss the paper, kiss the type with the paper and pull it off. That pressure right there. Because if you do it too hard, one, it'll cut the paper. Two, it'll really wear down the lead. So it just kisses it. And it's just so cool how all that stuff works. Anyway. And then they were able to take that stuff and make photographs and everything. Okay, 73. Yep, cast a whole page. Oh, yeah. It's just fascinating, this old technology. To us, having to go back and put a page together, letter by letter. I mean, no matter how fast you did it, it was still letter by letter, okay, to put a page together. It seems to us, that's ridiculous. Well, it was the only way they knew how to do it. It was the only way. It's like CW is the only way that was available for these people, so they used it. The first radio transmitters, the spark gap and so on, could not do a good job transmitting the human voice. Transmitting amplitude modulation takes far more power per bit of information than CW does. CW was efficient, it would work. CW was, this is one reason that the U.S. Armed Forces basically pulled most of the hams into the service because they already knew Morse code and could teach it to others. Hams back then were generally much younger, mostly teens, 20s, a few in their 30s, and so on. Because radio was so new. It was such a new thing. Anyway, linotype, there we go. Okay, now we can cast whole videos. Yes, absolutely. We're doing it right now. I'm sending this video around the world. It's gone to the Philippines, it's gone to Malaysia, it's gone to Australia, it's gone to Europe, it's gone to Canada, and all over the United States. So thank you all so very much. I think I'm going to wrap up a moment or two early here. Just if I could ask of you, if you are not subscribed, please do so. Please tell your friends about the channel. I know this is the time of year when the channel stats are always down, but we need to keep them up so that the YouTube algorithm is happy and helps other people find ham radio. So, until we next meet, 73.